I'm saying. I like the way she left off with that because it's kind of I guess. Okay, so I'm gonna look at this a lot because you guys make me really nervous. Okay, so last week Virgil asked me if I would do a little 10-minute sermon tonight, and I really didn't want to, so I told him I would think about it, and he just stared at me smiling. So I said yes. So in lieu of those events, this is titled "How to Say No." Just kidding. It's not. It's not. Okay, so this is actually called "Accepting God's Plan." And I know I'm the one that wrote this, and I'm the one giving it, but I really feel like that this was really meant for me. So, I want to start in Exodus when Moses was charged with leading God's people out of Egypt. Through chapters 3 and 4, Moses protests with God in just like every way that he can. He's absolutely scared. It starts out with God speaking to Moses through the burning bush. Everybody knows the story. God tells Moses to go before Pharaoh, and he demands this, and tell him, to set his people free. And Moses asks, well, who am I to go before Pharaoh? Only the people. And God gives him assurance that he's going to be with him, and he instructs him on what to do. And then Moses says, well, who do I say you are? So God gives Moses his name. Not only does he give him his name, but he gives him this grand little speech that just gives me goosebumps every time I read it. God bumps, as Tony calls it. But at this point, you can see where the Lord is kind of getting a little irritated. So then Moses asks, well, what if they don't believe me? So what's God do at this point? He gives him the ability to perform these miraculous things with his staff. He shows him how to do it. He sees it with his own two eyes, even in the very presence of God, and he's still scared. Exodus 4:10 through 17. Moses pleases with the Lord. He says, I'm not very good with words. I've never have. Good at yelling. Okay. Shucks. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm not good with words. I get tongue tied, and my words get tangled. And then the Lord asks Moses, well, who makes a person's mouth, and who decides whether they speak or do not speak? Hear or do not hear, see or do not see? Is it not I, the Lord? He says, now go, and I will be with you as you speak, and I will instruct you on what to say. Verse 13 says, but Moses pleaded again, Lord, please send anyone else. Then the Lord became angry with Moses. All right, he said, well, what about your brother Aaron the Levite? I know that he speaks well, and look, he's on his way to you now, and he will be delighted to see you. Talk to him, put the words in his mouth, and I will be with both of you as you speak, and I will instruct you both in what to do. Aaron will be your spokesman to the people. He will be your mouthpiece, and I will stand in the place of God, and you will stand in the place of God for him, telling him what to say. And take your shepherd's staff with you and use it to perform the miraculous signs I've shown you. Okay. So, with fear and hesitation, he protested with God, something that I'm sure we've all done at least once in our life. And to me, it's pretty clear that Moses is terrified of being a leader. And I relate to these couple of chapters in a few different ways. Recently, I had a conversation with Josh about how I felt I wasn't built to be a leader. And of course, he argued with me. And he told me I needed to get over myself and step up into that role. Yeah. It also reminds me of arguing with Nico to take out the trash. I'm sorry, son, I but he's always got some kind of rebuttal. He says, well, I don't have shoes on. I'm like, okay, we'll put shoes on. And he's like, it's cold outside. Okay, we'll put on your jacket. Or it's dark. Well, I'll turn the light on for you. And he reminds me of verse 13. Lord, please send anyone else. So I've also been on the other end, especially with God. I just recently decided that I was going to be a big girl and just give in completely to whatever God wants me to do. And 2 whole days after I spoke it out of my mouth that I was going to just finally just let it all go. I'm just going to let it go. Virgil's like, hey, do you want to do a sermon? Touche. So, which brings me to this point. What about when God doesn't appear to us in a burning bush, or give us a magic staff to perform miracles, or send with us an Aaron of our own because we're too afraid to speak? To me, that's acceptance. My role here at this church is safe. I mean, as I clean, it's pretty simple stuff. With children's ministry, I print off a pre-made lesson and I read it. It's also pretty simple. Joining worship was a little bit harder because it left me vulnerable, definitely out of my comfort zone, much like this. Being vulnerable for the Lord is a good thing. It shows willingness to be obedient. It's a physical and visual confirmation that you trust what the Lord has planned for you. Accept God's plan as the best possible outcome for your life. When you accept God's plan as yours, you begin to walk in obedience a little easier and a little better. And when you accept his will, it makes you grow in your faith. And as your faith grows deeper, your obedience grows stronger. And it's an infinite cycle, bringing you closer to God. So Luke 9:23 and 24 says, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And I think everybody in here is an example of this. Proverbs 19:21 says, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. To give up your life means to accept God's will, God's life for yourself. You must give up yourself. You must give up your fear and any notion or idea or path or whatever vision you have for your life, because it's not yours anymore to decide, it's God's. A completely willful act on your part to hand over control. In Genesis, God asks Abraham to take his only beloved son to go sacrifice him in the land of Moriah. And so what did Abraham do? He gathered up everything and his son and he left. Abraham had the blade in the air directly above Isaac, and he was prepared to take that plunge. And that's obedience, and that is faith, and that comes from accepting God's will. Job 42:2 says, I know that you can do all things, and no purpose of yours can be thwarted. The NLT version says, I know you can do anything and no one can stop you. And I love that one because it's pretty blunt. But my last example, I guess, here of total acceptance is Jesus' mother, Mary. I was watching Mark Lowry's Home Depot skit. If you guys don't know who he is, you got to look him up. He is hilarious. But towards the end of his skit, he says, quote, the silence of Mary at the cross is such a great testimony to the fact of who Jesus really is. And it really is. Any other mother in this world would be fighting her way through everyone, taking punches, stones, being spit on, whatever else, just to try to rescue her kid. But she knew what her son's destiny was, and through it, though it hurt her, obviously, unimaginably, as she witnessed all of his tortures, she accepted it. In order to be obedient in faith, you must first accept God's will. Ultimately, it's futile not to. Has anybody ever lost control in the ice? Anybody? Okay, so it's much like that. If you don't know what you're doing to correct it, you're just going to make it worse. Natural instinct says to slam on the brakes and turn away from where you're sliding. And natural instinct will get you put in a ditch. So you have to let off the gas and turn into the skid. But it's going against everything humanly instinctual and just going with it. So you just got to let go of control and go with God's plan. That's what I got.